Canada, the fourth largest oil producer in the world, will implement a plan seeking to reduce emissions through a national cap and trade system. Mercx Buzarang has the details.
Canada recently unveiled a plan that will mandate oil and gas companies to cut emissions of 38% from 2019 levels by 2030. Canada introduced a cap and trade system that would allow firms to buy offsets if their emissions are too high. According to Federal Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault, the framework considers the global demand for oil and gas and the importance of sector in the Canadian economy. It also sets a strict but achievable limit. However, the plan received opposition, including the federal Conservative opposition and Canadian provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan. These two are Canada's main oil-producing provinces. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe said that the framework is another example of the federal government hurting his province's economy. He also said that the emissions cuts contained in the plan will be another burden to the oil and gas sector of Saskatchewan, aside from carbon tax, methane emissions proposal, and clean electricity regulations. The Premier also took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to express his opposition.
I'm here at COP28 in Dubai with a number of Saskatchewan and Canadian oil and gas companies. And we're telling the world about how Canada has the safest and the most reliable, as well as the most environmentally sustainable oil production that you can find on Earth. In fact, if all of the oil producing countries in the world adopted environmental regulations similar to what we have in Saskatchewan, greenhouse gas emissions from oil production globally would be cut by more than 25% overnight. Now, you would think that our federal government would be promoting sustainable Canadian oil and gas to a world that needs a reliable energy supply, but they're not. Instead, they are using this conference to try to shut down our oil and gas industry by kneecapping it with even more emissions regulations than we previously had. This makes no sense at all. It's going to make Canada and other countries even more reliant on oil produced from afar. Countries like Russia, who do not have the same environmental practices as we do in Saskatchewan or Canada, and who are using the proceeds from their oil industry to finance an illegal invasion of Ukraine. This is what our federal government is doing here. Not only undermining our energy industry in Saskatchewan and Canada, but also undermining our energy independence, so we are forced to become even more reliant on foreign oil. Well, your Saskatchewan government will continue to stand up for our sustainable energy sector in our province and our nation. We'll stand up for the thousands of good-paying jobs that it creates. And we will stand up for Canadian energy independence.
Meanwhile, Alberta Premier Daniel Smith and the province's Environment Minister Rebecca Schultz described the framework as the latest example of the heavy-handedness of the federal government towards the province. Smith also said that, quote, Albertans will not tolerate it. Our province is simply done with what amounts to a steady stream of economic sanctions and punitive measures thrown upon our citizens and businesses to intentionally damage their livelihoods. End of quote. Canada aims to reduce its emissions by 40 to 45% or below 2005 levels by the end of the decade. Reporting from Toronto, this has been Mercx Buzarang, SMNI News, Canada.